Now in the August 6th primary, and a candidate you may not be aware of. East Tennessee businessman Dave Hatley is one of 13 independent candidates in the race. Now, what separates Hatley is he is sitting on a nearly $6 million war chest headed in to the general election in November. That's money to compete. Dave, glad to have you with us on this. Briefly tell people about yourself and why you're running for governor.
Sure. I'm a Tennessean. I've lived here my entire life. Diehard Titans fan. Been a season ticket holder for 17 years, so very familiar with Nashville. I've grown up having to build my own business and come from a broken family here, and I've worked with Tennesseans my entire life and never really been into politics. And sitting around the last 4 or 5 years, just kind of watching some of the things that are happening in Tennessee has got my attention to where I think I've got the answer for a lot of problems, and that's kind of what's driven me to enter this race.
Now, I mentioned the cash you have on hand to run a campaign. This is all your money. Why did you decide to go that route rather than take money from individuals, maybe accept money from special interests who might want to see you in there?
When I started this journey, Scott, one of the things I wanted to do is be self-funded. I just don't feel like Tennesseans should pay me to prove that I should be the next governor of Tennessee. I think that's what's wrong with politics. I look at what's going on, and part of our campaign stuff that we're promoting is banning some of these contributions to campaigns. I just don't think that you can run a campaign and have contributions from different PACs and things like that and not be influenced when you're in the office. And that's the whole purpose of my campaign. I want to go in with a neutral slate. I'm an independent. I don't want to party. I want to make the decisions that make sense for Tennesseans. I'm not interested in fighting with the right or the left. We got a lot of work to be done, and I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and get in there and do it. I've done it my whole life. That's all I've done is fix problems, and I want to do it on the state level right now, and I'm prepared to do it.
Improving education outcomes, part of your platform. Of course, the state of Tennessee has spent more than $100 million a year in the last couple of years on school vouchers, where you can send your children to a private school on public dollars. Where do you stand on that?
That's a touchy subject for a lot of Tennesseans. If you read what the comptroller said, it's a flawed program right now. Some of these people that are getting these vouchers were already in private schools. They're not going to the lower income families. There's a lot of people waiting on these vouchers that aren't getting them that can't afford private schools. And then the flip side is people are getting them that can't afford. So I think the program is flawed. I would stop to say that we need to throw it out and get rid of it. I think it's got good potential, but this program needs some work. We're taking away money from our public education system right now. We just got rated last per pupil spending. I mean, that's embarrassing. I mean, where does that say that we are putting our education as a priority? We've got to get better. And some of my plans, if you follow my campaign, is making Tennessee better and lots of part of the education platform.
You run what is now the largest hot tub factory in the U.S. What would you do as a governor to bring more good paying and, let's say, manufacturing jobs to Tennessee?
That's one thing I think I can bring that none of the candidates can even talk about, is my experience in how incredible Tennessee is to manufacture. Everyone wants to move here. We see people moving here in flocks. Everyone wants to be here. When I move someone here from out of state, they never leave. This is a great state. And we need to show off our state more and get employers here that are going to take care of their employees. That's what I've done. My companies are employee owned. My average salary at my hot tub factory with the employee ESOP is $88,000. And that's a lot in East Tennessee. But more importantly, they have a piece of the ownership. They have a piece of the pie. They're driven to retire one day and have a plan. And that's what I'd like to find out there. There are more companies like mine out there. I'd love to make that an incentive to get those top people in some of these rural areas. I think a focus would be some of these rural areas, they lose one factory right now, they're dead. We've got to find these factories to come in here and fill these areas that are empty.
Dave Hatley, independent candidate for governor. Good to meet you. I hope we get a chance to talk again between now and November.
Thank you so much, Scott, for having me on.